Sup everyone, welcome back to another video, and today yet again it's going to be a discussion video. I really don't want to get into the contents of Genshin Impact because every time I do, right, there's always the meta players who says one thing and then the casual who say another thing. Like, oh, why does this matter? So it really comes down to making content for Genshin. We kind of gotta find what we like to do, and I really like having these conversations, and I find that when I have them in my streams, it actually opens doors to a ton of other discussions. So this is just going to be a piece of it, but we're going to be talking about dry patches in Genshin Impact. Now, when it comes to gacha games in general, dry patches are a natural given thing. Why is that, right? We're going to be talking about that as well in this video, but ultimately we want to get to the bottom of whether or not, right, they're really necessary or good for the longevity of the game, or how fun the game is, or how successful a game becomes. Now, I'm going to give some of my opinions here, so if you don't like my opinion, right, feel free to turn the video off. But after playing dozens of gacha games, I have come to the conclusion that honestly, dry patches could or could not exist, right? Like, I don't think most players out there are saying, I wish there was a patch in this game where I don't play this game, right? Or I don't want to play this game. It sounds weird to say it. Dry patches in the most sense are kind of slower patches with no major content releases, and it allows players to really accumulate their resources, really kind of bulk up in preparation for something big to come, because you can't always be riding high, right? It's like if a roller coaster is constantly just giving you a nosedive, eventually you're gonna get tired of that nosediving thrill. The point here is that Genshin Impact is trying to allow you to take a break, and also at the same time give themselves a break. Content releases when it comes to these kind of games are extremely tightly regulated. You can't just have some random writer sit in a room for one evening, write something up, and then throw out a major quest line that revolves around this writing. It doesn't work like that. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and obviously HoYoverse wants to tie everything together into a big, nice, neat pile of lore and stuff that everything connects to everything else, or give you guys a little more insight about certain aspects of certain characters' life apart from the main storyline. However, right, with the resources that HoYoverse currently has available to them that they've made through Genshin Impact, I think it's borderline inexcusable to say that, well, HoYoverse doesn't have the resource to create something amazing every single patch, even if it's not a major region patch, or if it's not a major Archon Quest expansion patch or a sub-region patch. There are other things that they could do that players could enjoy. Now, this video is sponsored by U7Buy. Use the link in the description below to come and get a slight discount off of your Primo Gem purchases, as well as the Welcome Moon. Thank you for always supporting the channel content. And now let's get back to the video. Currently using 3.7 as an example, the TCG, right? TCG is a feature that some of us really enjoy. However, is TCG really a game mode that you can sink your teeth into for a couple hours a day? Probably not. I think most people, even if you do enjoy the TCG, a couple games every now and then feels fine, right? It's something that you indulge in once in a while, not every day, hours in a day. The complexity just isn't there for something like the TCG to really take over somebody's life the same way maybe Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail initially did. Now, also remember, I'm not making excuses here for HoYoverse. I'm not saying like, oh, they can get away with this or this is fine. I'm simply trying to tell you guys the situation that we're in right now is a very weird one, right? On one side, if the game becomes more demanding, HoYoverse likely fears that they're going to lose a certain type of grip on the players, mainly because, let's paint this picture. For example, if Resin didn't exist, how long can players actually play this game for? I think I would have quit the game 2 years ago, because I would have sat here, played 8 to 10 hours a day of Genshin Impact non-stop every day, and just grinded out my gear to perfection, and then I would have reached this burnout wall that most people are in way faster, right? So HoYoverse saying, okay, we can't go to that extreme. Gacha games were never built for you to play indefinitely with no limitations. But then what about the opposite, right? Putting in such suffocating restrictions that makes it feel like you progress so slow it would take you an entire lifetime to accomplish something worthwhile, or just swipe, right? When the time spent versus a free-to-play and a pay-to-play player is so vast that it could seem impossible, decades. Now, to give an example, let's just say on this extreme, for free-to-play players to save enough Primo Gems and stuff to get a C6 character that they want, it would take 50 years I'm just giving a random number, right? Like imagine if that was the scale of things, it also doesn't work. So we can agree that it's somewhere in the middle, this magical realm of, okay, we want players to play our game for as long as humanly possible, but at the same time, we don't want them to feel discouraged because we're not giving them enough. So Genshin Impact and Hoyoverse basically came up with this formula. Now they're not going to disclose it, and obviously I don't have the exact numbers to this formula, but the formula goes something like this, right? They're testing boundaries, right? They're testing variables, being like, what can we do to get players to log into our game every single day? Does it matter that they want to log in, or they enjoy logging in, or they have something meaningful to do when they log in? No, right? Because that's too much freaking work. You're going to create a product that makes people want to log in every single day for like what, decades at a time? It's not doable, right? League of Legends is already on its dying breath pretty much, and it's only been 10 years or so, give or take, like 15 years almost. So Genshin Impact has a 10-year timeline that they set, right? They initially set this. So just 1 decade. What can we do? What kind of things can we do to this game that gets people to log in every single day? For some, against their will, right? Basically forced to play. FOMO is a big thing that they play around. Now, why are we even talking about FOMO and Hoyoverse business tactics? It's mainly because right now people are complaining, why are dry patches even a thing? Should they not just make content for the dry patches? But I'm telling you guys right now, right? The beautiful thing about Genshin, or the ugly side of Genshin, is that Hoyoverse plays these mind games with you, and you're much more of like a psychological experiment for them as you are like a loyal consumer or a gamer. I honestly think that the success of Genshin is going to propel Hoyoverse, the company, into new territories. The stuff that they have learned about the human psyche and how much people are willing to spend money on constellations or eidolons and Honkai Star Rail and stuff like that, how they should be designing characters, what type of character niches and traits are good. Should they give more powerful 4 stars versus, you know, OP 5 stars? Is power creep a thing, or how should they do power creep? What kind of breaks they should be giving players, what kind of content releases they should be doing? I'm almost certain that they also understand that Genshin's pacing and design has certain flaws in it, but instead of fixing what's already working, right, going in and fixing things and making things different from what people are already used to, they decided to take that into a new product. Learn your mistakes, move on, make something better. Learn your mistakes, move on, something better. Right now, Genshin's dry patches, in my opinion, suits the player base that is indulging in this title. Now, does that mean your voice or a hardcore player voice doesn't matter? Of course not. But you have to understand that Hoyoverse right now is running an experiment. It's like the frog is sitting in the boiling water saying, why are you increasing the temperature, right? You're part of an experiment. Hoyoverse is gathering data. They're trying to test the limitations. You as a player, how frustrated do you have to get, right? What do they have to do to you for you to quit the game? Where is that threshold? They release a really beloved 5-star Pyro character from the Sumeru region, and she turned out terrible. Was that enough? How much did we lose in comparison, let's say, to another decent character, right? Everything, honestly, to Hoyoverse is just a numbers game. They're trying to figure out how things are going to work and how things are going to click, and once they figure out this boundary, the tipping point and the lowest point, everything in between is going to become profit. They're going to work these boundaries to their absolute limits and maximize profit margins, because that's all it has ever been about. Money, money, and money. So now let's tie everything back together. Why is there a dry patch? Is dry patches a good thing? In my opinion, when it comes to Genshin Impact, dry patches are Hoyoverse's way of saying, okay, relax, get back into your cages, all right, have fun inside your cages, do what you want. We're gonna go back here, see the numbers, and reanalyze how we're gonna approach the next region. With each region release, they have also had themes and things that Hoyoverse test. They take things from previous tests that they've succeeded on and implement them into the new stuff. For example, this is the most obvious one. Raiden Shogun banner sales was so successful, right? Hoyoverse tested something by reallocating the power of constellations from getting people to whale for C6, meaning that they're going after the big whales money versus reallocating that power back into C1 and C2. C6 is still good, but not nearly as alluring. So Now you're incorporating some dolphins, people who saved a lot of resources, and as well as the whales are probably still going to whale, right? How is that going to change the financial structure and then the banner sales and stuff? It was a huge success. They were able to bait in a lot of the dolphins, the low spenders who've been like saving up their welcome moons for like a whole year. They kind of lost control of, oh, that C1 is such a good low-hanging fruit. This is the stuff that they took and be like, okay, so players love it more when we do it for C1 and C2, and we get to make more money. So it's a win-win situation, right? Players love us and we make more money. Why not? And then they took that idea, they pushed it into Sumeru. Now they're taking everything they learned from Sumeru, pacing, story, and stuff like that, pushing it into Fontaine. Everything's just a culmination thing. People say Hoyoverse doesn't listen, but let me tell you guys, Hoyoverse listens more than you actually believe. It's just they're putting in work in areas that doesn't really directly benefit the player base. Sometimes it does, like the case with the constellations, but other times they don't. For example, right now the decision to have 2 dry patches instead of 1 with no golden archipelago in sight is a decision that baffles the mind. Truly it does. But if you guys want more of these kind of discussions, make sure to tune into my live stream. We have them every Wednesdays and Saturdays. So until then, stay safe. Peace. Bye.